Mr. Chancellor, it's my honor to present to you Professor John Krebs, Baron Krebs of Whiteham, ornithologist, behavioral ecologist, food security advocate, and champion of the use of scientific evidence in political decision-making for the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa. In biology circles, Lord Krebs is best known for his groundbreaking work on optimal foraging theory, the function of song repertoires in birds, the conservation of bird populations, and for his hugely successful textbook, An Introduction to Behavioral Ecology, now in its 4th edition, which has influenced generations of students from faculty sitting on stage to biology undergraduates who are receiving their degrees today. Lord Krebs received a D.Phil degree from Oxford, where he returned after holding faculty appointments at the University of British Columbia and the University of North Wales. He is a Fellow of the Royal Society and the recently retired Principal of Jesus College, Oxford. Lord Krebs conducted innovative studies on territoriality, resource defense, and foraging that elegantly linked behavior to ecology and evolutionary fitness. Unusually, for someone who began as a field biologist, he also investigated the mechanisms that underlie behavior, linking brain structure to differences between species in ecology and behavior. And in some of the latter work, I had the pleasure of collaborating with John. Lord Krebs was the first chair of the British Food Standards Agency and has led numerous other national and international committees focused on environmental science, agriculture, and sustainability. Throughout his career of public service, Lord Krebs has been a tireless advocate for evidence-based decision-making, an approach that has led to his becoming a world authority on the conflicts between food production and conservation. For example, on the relation among badgers, bovine tuberculosis, and human health. Critically, this contribution to the public good was undertaken under 2 Conservative and 2 Labour governments, during which time he succeeded in establishing the idea that informed, science-based decision-making plays a significant role that can both benefit society and assist government regardless of its political roles. In recognition, both as a scientist and a public servant, John Krebs was knighted in 1999 and appointed a life peer in 2007. Lord Krebs' career and his involvement in the public sphere serve as examples for Western graduates of the broader role that scientists can play in society, and as an inspiration for the positive impact their training and education can have in Canada and internationally. Professor Krebs is, for these reasons, an outstanding candidate for an honorary degree from Western. Mr. Chancellor, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor and in the name of the Senate, I ask you to confer the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa, upon Lord Krebs.
By virtue of the authority vested in me as Chancellor, I admit you to the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa. Congratulations, Lord Krebs. On behalf of all assembled here today, I should now like to invite our newest alumnus, Lord John Krebs, to address Convocation.
Mr. Chancellor, Mr. President, faculty of Western University, graduands, and honored guests. It's a great privilege, an honor, and a pleasure to be awarded an honorary degree by Western University, and I would like to thank you most warmly for conferring this honor on me. It's also a great pleasure to see you, the graduands, who are taking your degrees this afternoon, and I would like to join Mr. Chancellor in congratulating all of you for the tremendous hard work you put into your degree which you're now receiving. And at the same time, I'd like to congratulate those who are here as parents, relatives, partners, and supporters. I'm sure that today's graduands would acknowledge that they would not have arrived where they are today without the support, be it financial, emotional, or in countless other ways, of those who are here to support them today. As the Chancellor said, graduation is a day of celebration as well as a day of transition from university student life to whatever the future holds. And I hope it's also a day that brings back many pleasant memories of your time here at Western. You, today's graduands, are the people who will shape our future in a very rapidly changing world. And your education has equipped you with the skills you will need to meet tomorrow's challenges. Irrespective of the subject you've studied and the technical knowledge you've acquired in your special area, you will have learned how to analyze information, to critically question sources and authorities, to synthesize ideas and evidence, to summarize and communicate your ideas to others. This is the essence of a university education. In short, you have learned the values of the Enlightenment, summarized by the author Francis Wheen as follows: an insistence on intellectual autonomy, a rejection of tradition and authority as infallible sources of truth, a loathing of bigotry and persecution, a commitment to free inquiry of progress, rights, and freedom. Sadly, there are still many people in the world today who prefer bigotry, adherence to arbitrary rules of authority, and who reject free thinking. You, as graduands of Western University, must vigorously defend these Enlightenment values. Without these values, your generation will not succeed in tackling many of the great challenges that lie ahead. And bearing in mind the late Yogi Berra's aphorism, "The future ain't what it used to be," I am cautious about making predictions. However, there's one thing about which we can be confident. Unfortunately, previous generations, including my own, have been profligate in their exploitation of the planet, leaving you, today's graduates, with the huge task of coping with the consequent damage to the planet's environment, most importantly, climate change. I can only apologize on behalf of my generation, the baby boomers. We simply didn't know what we were doing. It has been said that you are the first generation to feel the impact of climate change and the last generation that can do something about it. In just 6 weeks' time, the UN Climate Summit in Paris will be a critical moment in assessing international will to tackle climate change. 140 countries, including Canada, have submitted pledges to reduce their greenhouse gas footprint. But will this be enough to stave off dangerous climate change, considered by most experts to be an average global temperature rise of more than 2 degrees? Even the most optimistic experts think it'll be touch and go. Some people think that we really will have to change our lifestyles in order to reduce our impact on the planet. Joe Stiglitz, the Nobel Prize-winning economist, put it like this in his book, Freefall, and I quote, "If those in developing countries try to imitate America's lifestyle, the planet is doomed. There are not enough natural resources, and the impact on global warming would be intolerable." He's referring to the fact that the average American, and I'm not picking on Americans because UK and Canada are in the same boat, has a carbon footprint that is about 10 times the global average needed to stabilize the climate. Or to put it another way, if everyone in the world consumed like we do, it would be equivalent to having a global population today of over 70 billion people. But there is another point of view, namely that thanks to scientific research and innovation, we will find ways of tackling our environmental challenges without compromising economic growth and consumption. I don't know who's right, but there's no doubt that technology will transform the way we live. My father was born into a world of horse-drawn carriages, gas lamps, no antibiotics, no aeroplanes. I was born into a world with no mobile phones, no colour TV, no personal computers, no internet. So when we think of what new technologies might achieve, we have to think right outside the box. Don't let's forget that when Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone in 1876, he said, optimistically, someday every town in America will have one. And the president of the Western Union refused to buy the patent rights for Bell's invention for $100,000, saying it was nothing but a toy. How are we going to make judgments about the acceptability and safety of new technologies, such as artificial intelligence, human enhancement, nanotechnology, genetic modification of crops, genome editing, and the use of embryonic stem cells to treat otherwise intractable diseases? Well, politicians are charged with making these judgments, but they, or at least they should, rely on the advice of experts. And the experts must be free to voice openly their interpretation of the evidence. But the use of science and technology will pose profound moral and ethical questions about choice, values, and what it is to be human. Therefore, scientists must acknowledge the roles that the humanities will play in determining our future path. But let me end on a lighter note. I'm sure that each of you will surprise and delight your parents and your teachers in your future careers. I've been a teacher at Oxford University for many decades, and I've many times been totally surprised by what my students have gone on to do, students who've graduated in biology. There's the example just a couple of years ago when it was very difficult to get a job after graduating, and one of my students was walking past the London Zoo in Regent's Park in central London and saw an advertisement for somebody to dress up as a gorilla. And he went in and asked about the job, and they said, well, actually, our star attraction, the gorilla, died last night, and we need someone to wear a gorilla costume, get into the cage, and pretend to be the gorilla. And this student really was biological training, thought he could cope very well, so he put on the costume, got into the cage, and he was a great success. The crowd loved him. He could reach through the bars to grab peanuts, he could spit on people as they came close by, and as the day went by, he grew more confident, and he climbed up onto the trees that were in his enclosure and swung from branch to branch until disaster struck. He missed his hold and went over the top of the bars into the next cage. And he was flat on his back on the ground and looked up, and the lion was approaching, a ferocious lion with fangs bared. And at that moment, he began to panic. And as he started to scream, the lion said in a quiet voice, "Shh, I'm also an unemployed biology graduate." So let me end by wishing all of you who are taking your degrees today success in your future. For some of you, success may mean earning a lot of money, becoming famous, or enjoying power. But I prefer the wise words of the American poet Bessie Stanley, who wrote the following: "To laugh often and love much, to win the respect of intelligent persons and the affection of children, to earn the approbation of honest critics, and to endure the betrayal of false friends, to have played with enthusiasm and sung with exultation, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived, this is to have succeeded." Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lord Krebs, for sharing your insightful wisdom with our graduates today, and for highlighting the urgency of dealing with climate change-related challenges. Your work as an advocate for science and its role in public policy has advanced our global understanding of the importance of science-based decision-making at all levels of government around the world. Your international reputation as a highly respected scientist and your work in various fields, including conservation and ecology, has informed and will continue to inform generations of young minds. It is an honor, sir, to have you with us today. And thank you very much for joining us and our graduates this afternoon as we celebrate the graduation of our wonderful graduates. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating once more Western's newest honorary Doctor of Science, Lord John Krebs.